What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video today, talking to you guys about Battlefield 2042. Kind of keeping consistent with what I did earlier, talking about Cyberpunk, kind of what is old is new again. I thought it would be fun to dive into some gameplay and to talk about my experiences with the game that I have at least seen. Just a brief history, I bought this game at launch, I think as many people did, hoping for the ultimate Battlefield experience, and was sorely disappointed with lack of polish and overall game bugs. And I'm sure you've seen the litany of videos with like the hovercrafts going up on the side of buildings and some of the weird game-breaking bugs, like not being able to revive a person that was stuck through geometry, just to name a few of the things that I remember really stuck out in my mind at least. And I think I stuck with it for maybe 25 hours or so over the course of about a month, trying to get into it with various groups of friends or solo play, but it just never really seemed to resonate well with me. And I think, like many other people, just kind of abandoned the idea of Battlefield being in my current game library, uninstalled it, and moved on to greener pastures. So it is kind of funny now that I'm getting back into it, considering that Modern Warfare 2 comes out very, very soon. And I know that game is going to dominate my life, but I guess maybe just in the thoughts of, trying to see if Battlefield had been fixed maybe one more time, I went ahead and reinstalled it. And what you're looking at today is some gameplay footage that I recorded earlier in the week of me playing through the new mode, Tactical Conquest. The reason I chose Tactical Conquest is because there are no vehicles. And I know that while vehicles are definitely a big part of the Battlefield experience, I always thought they were a little too highly tuned. And I did prefer more of the kind of run and gun idea that went behind regular Battlefield. Maybe a little more tactical gameplay, obviously. It's in the name, Tactical Conquest. But this mode, which has not been new to Battlefield, but at least new to this experience for me, was something that I gravitated to. And honestly, after playing a couple matches, and you're just looking at one of the random ones that I played, that I recorded for you guys, I have to say, definitely my preferred way to play. And I actually did enjoy this mode quite a bit. So, not saying that this resolves any of the problems of, just the game as a whole, but in terms of eliminating something that I felt was incredibly broken, being the armor, it's nice to see that, this does kind of appear to be like a very good core Battlefield experience. The big thing I noticed right away when I loaded it up was that you have to put crossplay on. I remember one of the things that when the game was coming out, there was some major latency issues with server balancing and that sort of thing. And you had to turn crossplay off if you were on PC to get better performance. If you put crossplay off, you will never find a match. And I don't even know why this is still an option in the game. They really need to just patch this out, honestly. You will queue every single match alone and every single game type alone. So you have to put crossplay on. And as you can see in the bottom left corner, you will be paired with a lot of console players. So you'll either be playing with Xbox players or PlayStation players. And honestly, considering how poorly this game performed early on and how quickly the player count dropped, you're going to need all the help you can get getting a match. So crossplay is actually a very welcome thing. I've heard that there are talks of some sort of aim assists with controller players on console. I don't know this to be true. I did okay in this game, considering I haven't played in a long time. I wasn't like absolutely hated my performance, but there were definitely shots I know I should have made, and then there were some great shots I made at distance. So I don't know who gets the advantage there in these aim assist situations. I think a lot of it has to do more with positioning rather than the game quote unquote playing for you. So just keep that in mind as you're playing through this and, picking your preferred platform of choice. But I can tell you, at least on the Steam charts, this game is absolutely in the toilet on, people playing it on PC. So I assume the console population is what's kind of holding it all together. So anyway, you got to put crossplay on, you jump into a match, and off you go. So Tactical Conquest is basically your traditional map, one of the random maps that they have in the game. There's a couple less control points instead of the traditional, I think like 5 or 6 points in Conquest. It's down to just 3, which I really did appreciate because it makes the action much more compact, and it really does focus some of the fighting, which helps because it is a reduced player count. of only 16 versus 16 as opposed to the more traditional 64 versus 64 that you would experience on Conquest normally. So it's definitely a much more like intimate battle. But for the most part, if you want to find trouble, it's pretty easy. If you want to kind of lay back and play more of a defense role, that's very obtainable as well. Just keep in mind that if you're not really actively pushing those barriers between the two, between the 2 points, like clearly we're holding B, right? And we're going to push into A or C, right? That makes sense. If you're just sitting in B by yourself, there's a really good chance you might not see a lot of action. So keep that in mind. But I think that it does serve well to kind of suit your play style, because they still have the operators in this, and you still have the grappling hook dude and the healing dude. And I'm playing as Boris, who has his little turret, which actually saved my butt quite a few times, believe it or not, which I thought was great. But you'll find as you play through this game that you'll find your play style that works for you. All the customization, at least a little bit I dabbled with, still seems to be in full effect. You can easily swap customization on the fly, which I thought was actually really, really cool. So you can basically load out essentially like multiple loadouts at once. So if you want to have armor piercing rounds along with traditional rounds, or in my case, iron sight in combination with something that's like, a 6x scope or something, you can very seamlessly transition from one to the other by pressing a button, and it brings up this nice grid. That was something that was in the original Battlefield that I actually like. Considering there's no punishment on changing loadouts in every other game, it always seems silly to me that you had to kind of be stuck with what you had. And since Battlefield is such an open game, if you do manage to stay alive for a long time, situationally, you may find yourself in a place where a scope is more preferred as opposed to an iron sight or an ACOG or something, which you may want. So I like that you have the ability to stay alive and swap weapons or swap loadouts very easily, especially since now squads can all heal each other. So again, if you were playing with a group of friends and you were all in a squad situation and you all wanted to work on pushing objectives and keeping each other alive as long as possible, you absolutely could, which is cool. And depending on the loadouts you have, you're always going to be able to find the latest and greatest kit that works for your current situation. So that's a smart move, and I think that makes each map play out very dynamically, which is a good thing. In terms of graphics and performance, I noticed that it's significantly smoother than it was before. You're looking at my ultra-wide recording, so I'm running at 3440 by 1440. I have every setting on absolute maximum. I lowered the video resolution or the frame rate slightly on YouTube because YouTube's got some weird algorithms on like uncapped frame rates. So I'm running it at 60 frames a second for YouTube, but know that when I did record it was significantly higher. It was like around the 95 frames per second range. So performance looks great. Lots of detail, I thought, in the destruction of the environments. Still did see some popping from time to time. The one thing that really stood out to me more than anything else was how pretty the reflections were. In this map in particular, there's a lot of standing bodies of water, and you're going to see some really cool reflections from there. And some of the bloom effects I thought looked really, really good on the weapons, especially some of the explosions and some of the scoring on buildings and stuff. So the full destruction of Battlefield definitely has been tapered down for this. I think Battlefield 4 still is the gold standard when it comes to the idea of levolution and the idea of mass destruction. Obviously, this is a more intimate experience with just 16 players. Not having armor definitely reduces some of the destruction that you're going to expect to see. You're going to be shooting tank rounds and airplanes and mortars and all that kind of stuff. This is more just kind of traditional small arms fire, but still, there was plenty to see and do, and I did appreciate that. So I think that they've kind of polished the core experience, so to speak. And I feel like that as I played through it, I didn't have any encounters where I fell through the map or where I glitched out or anything in a place that was frustrating. You still will have your fair share of, ways to contribute, by being just a dedicated medic or a dedicated kind of person who's going around giving ammunition or doing call outs, in terms of where you want to stand and defend. So there's lots of ways to contribute. You do not have to be the front line run and gun constantly, and you will be rewarded with points for doing pretty much anything in this game, which is great. Because if you do want to grind out that battle pass and to unlock some of the challenges that they do for chunks of experience, you're going to find that, there's multiple ways to tackle those situations. So I thought that was pretty good too. So I like that. I played with Boris, as I mentioned before. I like him just because of the way his turret's set up. I think it's pretty easy to just set up a turret and kind of have it guard your flank, which is great. I know some of the other characters, like the wingsuit people and the grappling hook people, and they've added some new classes, it seems like, since I've played. I didn't play with them too much. I just always stuck with Boris because, I don't know, I like the engineer part of it, I guess. A lot of customization in terms of the way your character looks. That didn't change. And then there's also a lot of guns. I'm just sticking to a standard rifle here, but I did go through my loadouts from when I played before. And the nice thing about this Battlefield was that you could pretty much play like any way you wanted. So if you wanted to be an engineer with a submachine gun, you could. You weren't gated by your class, so to speak, in terms of what weapon you would get, which I liked. Now, you can't switch weapons in the middle of combat. That's only attachments. That would be cool, I guess, if you had a primary and a secondary that wasn't just like a small arms. Like you could see in the bottom right corner, I have a revolver. I don't think I ever actually even pull it out. You'll never use it because combat, you're gonna die, you're gonna kill or get killed so fast. The time to kill in this game is insanely high, in my opinion. So you're not gonna have time to pull out secondaries and stuff. You're not gonna waste your time on that. But if you did want to equip multiple loadouts, as far as I can tell, you're going to have to do that every time you die through the loading screen and just switch out to a different class, which isn't too big of a deal, but just keep that in mind. Unlike some of the other perks, like in Call of Duty, where you could have two primaries or something, I didn't see that option here. Maybe it exists. I don't know. And then, of course, all the options you're going to have for your gun, the different types of scopes and rifle attachments to really customize your character and your, pick the gun that works best for your situation. If you're more preferred to be a sniper, there's tons of options there. And I think that's really good. I'll close it on the best part of Battlefield. And one of the reasons that it did draw me back, and it actually did win me over again. And I'm glad I reinstalled it and played, because I'm going to put it on my rotation of games for sure, is the sound effects. So these guys have done a phenomenal job of really continuing to refine and polish some of the sound design you see. Well, you don't see the sound, you hear it. Every sound you hear in the game is all generated by other players. So there's no canned audio or explosions in the background. All the guns you hear, all the explosions, all the call outs from your teammates asking for cover fire or reloading or pinging or whatever is all built into the game. And if you're like me and you're some of an audiophile and you have a nice sound setup, you're going to greatly appreciate, one, the immersion that you get from the game, but two, so much information is being conveyed so quickly in terms of where enemies are firing and what kind of weapons they're firing and what to expect. And I love that. It really made it feel much more immersive, especially since the game looks so amazing. It really did draw me in. And if you're, super hardcore, obviously, turn off all the background music and just enjoy the audio for the game as is. I mean, there's definitely some light fanfare that goes on in the background, and music starts to swell up here and there as you get close to the end of a match or completing a point or whatever. But if you want that full immersive experience, turn all that off. Get yourself a nice pair of headphones or a nice speaker set, and I think you're really going to enjoy this game. So, final thoughts on Battlefield 2042. I think it's good. It's definitely a lot better than it was. It's by no means perfect. I may at some point dabble into the more traditional Conquest, the 64 v64 mode, to see if it makes sense to kind of jump back into it. But I had so much fun with this tactical Conquest mode and this more intimate experience that I think, honestly, I'll probably spend most of my time here, and I'm not have to worry about hunting down, overpowered tanks or hovercraft or helicopters. But we'll see. Definitely a game best played with friends. None of my friends are playing this game with me right now, which is a bit unfortunate. But if you have friends that are willing to play, definitely squad up and get back into this, because I think you're going to find some fun value with it. That wraps up today's video. I hope you found this re-review interesting. Leave your thoughts and comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.